Hello all, welcome to the new Simply Put series by Kalam IAS Academy. This is Priyanka Mahapatra, faculty at Kalam IAS. So today we'll be having a discussion on the newspaper dated 8th of February 2024. So coming to the text and the context section of the Hindu newspaper, one article was important from our exam point of view about the Uniform Civil Code and the recommendations of the Law Commission. This we have already discussed. The link for this video discussion will be provided in the description box. Then coming to the explain section of the Indian Express newspaper, two articles were important. First is regarding the deep tech and research funding of the government and what budget has to say on this. Then second is about the picking of election commissioners and the new procedure of the appointment of the election commission. So these are the two articles which we are going to discuss today, which is displayed on your. So the first article that we are going to discuss today is about the new process for picking the election commissioners and what led to it. So in this article, we are going to discuss the procedure till now. Okay, what is the procedure that we have been following till date? Then what will be the new procedure for the appointment of the election commissioners and what led to the Supreme Court for going for interpretation of the Article 324 that deals with the appointment of the election commissioners. Okay, then we would also discuss the new law, what are the new features of the new law, okay, and the criticism around it. Has it led to the preservation of the impartiality and independence of the institution or not? Okay, then we would take the law commission recommendations and some international practices. Okay, then the way forward. So let's get started. So why this is in news? Because election commissioner Anup Chandra Pandey, he is set to retire on February 14 this year, and his successor will be picked up through a consultative process that has been adopted for the first time. And we are talking about the consultative process which has been adopted for the first time after the Supreme Court verdict and the new law by the Parliament last year. Okay, and that consultative process is there to appoint an election commissioner in India. Okay, so here, before moving forward with the new procedure, let's understand that what is the old procedure, what we have been following till date. So you all know from your polity classes that how the members of the election commission, they were appointed solely at the discretion of the government. That means the prime minister was having all the power to decide the appointment, and he would take the help of the database of the serving and the retired officers. So one database would be there for naming, for taking the record of all the serving and the retired officers, primarily the secretaries to the government of India, the chief secretaries, and from there the law ministry would create a shortlist. So prime minister would take help of that shortlist in order to decide the appointment of an officer, a election of commissioner. Okay, then president would only formally appoint that chosen candidate. So the candidate is already chosen by the council of ministers headed by the prime minister, right? And the president would only formally appoint that candidate. Okay, so you all now understand that how the power to make the appointments rested exclusively with the executive, that is the government. Another fact is that the past election commissioners were predominantly all retired officers of the Indian Administrative Service, and no rule was there to prescribe the qualification for the appointment to the post. So this was the situation of the procedure that we have been following till date for the appointment of the election commissioners. Then the new procedure was adopted after the Supreme Court verdict and the new law of the Parliament. So according to the new law of the Parliament, there would be a consultative process in order to appoint the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners in the form of the selection committee, right? So this selection committee would comprise of Prime Minister, Lok Sabha Leader of Opposition and Union Minister, which is very similar to the committee which is there to appoint the Lokpal and the CVC, Central Vigilance Commissioner, that comprises of Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and Home Minister, right? So first is that we would be having a selection committee. Then second is regarding the qualification. Earlier, there was no rule prescribing the qualifications for the appointment to the posts of election commissioners, but this time we have included the qualification criteria. where individuals of integrity would be selected, and they must be currently holding or would have held a post equivalent to the rank of secretary. This is also a mandate. Then the candidate should possess the knowledge and experience or expertise in the management and conduct of elections. Okay, so this time we have included proper qualification for the candidates for the appointment to the post. Then coming to the salary and the conditions of service, that would be equivalent to that of cabinet secretary, unlike earlier provision under the 1991 Act, where it said that the salary and the conditions of service will be equivalent to the salary of the Supreme Court judge. So please remember these provisions so that this will be important. This will be again used in writing the criticism. Then we come to the important question that what led to the interpretation of the Article 324 of the Constitution. That means there were some problem which was lying with the appointment procedure of the election commissioners, based on which the petitions in the Supreme Court were calling for the fair and the transparent system for the appointment of the election commissioners, right? So here you should note down that Article 324 of the Constitution deals with the role of Election Commission of India. So whenever any question is coming regarding the election commission, then you should be actually quoting this Article 324. Okay? So coming to the current appointment system, which is very opaque because of the executive primacy in the appointment procedure. We just now discussed that how the executive was enjoying exclusive power in the appointment procedure, which raises doubts regarding the institution's independence, because election commission's independence is utmost important for a democracy like India in order to conduct free and fair elections, right? So this is one point which led to the interpretation of Article 324. Again, according to Article 324(2), there is a clause which says that Parliament can come up with a law anytime. That means Parliament should be bringing up a law to detail out an impartial procedure for the appointment of the election commissioners in order to preserve the independence of the institution so that free and fair elections can be conducted. But no efforts have been taken by any of the successive governments to enact such a law. So this was the thought process of the founding fathers of the Constitution as well, where they showed the need for the Parliament to legislate on this matter, because they included certain words in Article 324(2) saying subject to any law to be made by the Parliament. That means the founding fathers of the Parliament did not want the executive to have the exclusive authority. They wanted the Parliament to legislate on this matter in the subsequent years. Okay, so this is how the Supreme Court, while giving its ruling, delved into the legislative history of Article 324, including the discussions that happened in the Constituent Assembly. Therefore, the Supreme Court gave its verdict on March 2nd, 2023 by the 5-judge bench, saying that the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner and the election commissioners should be made by a consultative process. Okay, should be ideally formally made by the President of India on the advice of a selection committee, which would comprise of Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, and Chief Justice. Okay, please note down that the Supreme Court gave its ruling about including Chief Justice of India in the selection committee and said that Parliament was free to enact a law on this appointment procedure in the future. So then the Parliament introduced the bill, Chief Election Commissioner and Other Election Commissioners Appointment Conditions of Service Term of Office Bill. Okay, based on the power which was given by Article 324(2). And it replaced the earlier law, which is Election Commission, Conditions of Service of Election Commissioners and Transaction of Business 1991 Act. But the new law by the Parliament is not free from criticism. First point is regarding the selection committee. So the selection committee, according to the law of the Parliament, comprises of Leader of Opposition, Prime Minister and Union Minister. And you can imagine a situation where Leader of Opposition can be easily sidelined by the outvoting by the Prime Minister and the Union Minister. So here we can see the executive dominance again in the appointment process, which will affect the independence of the institution. Again, the second point is regarding the lack of Chief Justice involvement. The Supreme Court ruling gave a role to the Chief Justice in the selection committee. But the new law by the Parliament, it has replaced the Chief Justice of India with a nominated cabinet minister in the appointment process, which has reduced the judicial representation in the committee, and hence it has affected the impartiality of the institution. Then again, there is greater government influence as well. When the salary, which is equivalent to the cabinet secretary, is there for the chief election commissioner and other election commissioners, then it will lead to more government influence, because the salaries of the cabinet secretary or equivalent to cabinet secretary, it is fixed by the government, unlike the salary of the Supreme Court judge, which is fixed through an act of parliament. Right? Then comes the bureaucratic bias, because this chief election commissioners and other election commissioners, they will be performing quasi-judicial functions. But we are limiting these posts to senior bureaucrats when we have defined the qualification that they must be currently holding or would have held the rank of secretary. So this may exclude other suitable candidates. Right? Then selection committee may overlook the search committee's suggestions, because according to the new law, it is saying that the selection committee may go beyond the names suggested by the search committee and choose any other candidate as well. So these are the major criticisms of the new law. But the Law Commission recommendations for the consultative process have always included the Chief Justice of India. That means the judicial representation must be there in the selection committee in order to preserve the independence of the institution. Okay, you can see in the Dinesh Goswami Committee 1990, where it says for the Chief Election Commissioner, the President should consult the Chief Justice of India and the LOP, Leader of Opposition. Okay, similarly, 20th Law Commission's 255th Report 2015, it is also saying that President, after consulting a 3-member collegium or selection committee where Chief Justice of India is a part, should be there for the appointment of the election commissioners. Then coming to the international best practices, you can notice that how the selection committee is having an outsider involved in the appointment procedure. For example, in case of South Africa, where president is the appointing authority, but the selection committee is having representative of the Human Rights Court, having representative of the Commission on Gender Equality and the public prosecutor. Then in case of United States also, you can see that how the commission is appointed by the president but is confirmed by the Senate. That means the legislators, they are having their involvement. So these points, whichever are discussed, that is the international practices, the law commission recommendations, these can be used to write the way forward to an answer. Then you can conclude with the vision of B.R. Ambedkar, who said that elections will be only free in real sense of the word when it is taken out of the hands of the government of the day. That means we need to eliminate the executive dominance in the appointment procedure. So this was all about this topic's discussion. Then we come to the second article, that is about the Union Budget's plan for deep tech and research funding. So why this is in news? Because in interim budget speech recently, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, she has announced a 1 lakh crore fund to provide for the long-term low cost or zero interest loans for the research and development. And again, she has also talked about launching a new scheme to strengthen the deep tech capabilities in the defense sector. So these two separate announcements on the fund and the defense deep tech are very much closely linked. Very much closely linked in the sense that both are talking about funding of the research and development in our country. Right? So first we need to understand what is deep tech. So it is the advanced and disruptive technologies which is actually under development stage in India and which has got a huge potential to trigger the transformative change and provide solutions for the future. That means it includes the blockchain, it includes the robotics and drones, it includes the quantum computing, it includes the photonics and electronics, advanced materials, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology. So these are the elements of deep tech. So what is the aim of deep tech? To address the complex global challenges like climate change, hunger, epidemics, energy access, mobility, physical and digital infrastructure, and cyber security, and to enhance the productivity also, to drive the economic growth of a nation also. It can be also helping in creation of jobs, and it can offer competitive advantage to countries with expertise. And what are the real benefits for India if India is adopting the development, the research and development of deep tech? So it can lead to early adoption of such disruptive technologies. It can lead to training of manpower, entrepreneurship. It can have shares in the intellectual property. It can have indigenous know-how, and it can also develop self-reliance. And why India is ready to adopt such disruptive technologies? What is the India's leverage points? Because of its large base of high quality science and engineering manpower it is already having. And again, it has fairly well established technology culture as well. So these are the 2 points based on which India is ready to adopt such disruptive technologies and invest in the research and development of such deep tech. So what are the government's efforts towards incentivizing research? We have many missions. First is the National Mission on Transformative Mobility and Battery Storage. Then recently we have launched the National Quantum Mission. Then again another policy is their National Deep Tech Startup Policy, which is awaiting the government approval and which is to be piloted by Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade and Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor. So you need to know these institutions involved in the policies. They are a part of questions in the prelims exam. And what is the aim of this deep tech startup policy? It will address the specific challenges being faced by technology startups. We know that more than 10,000 startups are working in these technology domains. So it will address their challenges and provide them a platform to compete and collaborate with the best in the world, right? Then it will also open opportunities for the long-term funding. We all know that funding is a challenge for the startups, for the technology startups specifically. So here government is also taking care of this funding, and it is also having National Research Foundation where it is the government is talking about the funds. It is saying that 70% of the 50,000 allocation for the National Research Foundation over the next 5 years is to come from private industry. So we need to create better collaboration between the industry research labs and the educational institutions in order to broaden our research activity and also garner funds to support it. So here main say of the government in order is to garner the funding for the technology startups. Then in this recent budget, the government also announced 1 lakh crore corpus to finance the research and development where startups and other private sector ventures will be beneficiaries. So here you can understand that how government's efforts is towards garnering funds for the research and development, because funding is a real challenge with the research projects. So what are the reasons behind it? First is that the government expenditure is very low. It is far below the global average, where the global average is about 1.8%, but the government is spending just about 0.65%, although it is targeting to spend around 2% of the GDP. So this is the stated objective by the government, but in real sense it is only spending around 0.65%. And this is very significantly lower than the scientifically advanced countries as well with which it is trying to compete. This is first reason. Second is that we have poor engagement with the private sector, and the private sector is not encouraged to invest their money with the government, to collaborate with the government for the funding matters. Then again, there is no commensurate increase in funding by the government, only nominal increase we have seen in the budgetary allocations. A classic example can be seen in this year budget, where Department of Atomic Energy and Biotechnology and Ministry of Earth Sciences, they have actually got their budget slashed this time. Forget about increasing. Okay? Then there has been delays and interruptions in the disbursal. Even if the funding is coming, there has been lot of delays and interruptions in disbursal, which is affecting the project timing. Again, the complex bureaucratic requirements are a big reason which is contributing to the delays. So these are the major challenges with respect to the funding matters. For that reason, the scientific community is expressing their deep dissatisfaction over the lack of adequate research funding that is available to them, right? So this was all about today's discussion. Again, the short notes of this video discussion will be provided in our Telegram channel, that is Kalam IAS Academy, and the link for joining our channel will be provided in the description box, right? So do join the channel and get the important posts and updates. Again, I want to emphasize that the points which are discussed over the discussions so far in the newspapers are very, very important from your exam point of view, especially this year. So whenever you are quoting such current point, for example, that budget point that we discussed, that there has been slashing of the funds given to the Department of Atomic Energy. So this is very important for this year. So if you write that point with respect to any argument which you are making, with respect to the argument which is connected to the lack of the adequate funding by the government, then that can be very rewarding. Okay, that can be very creative on your part and very rewarding. That will fetch you more marks than others. Okay, so please keep note of these very unique points so that you replicate those in your exam, right, and get your rank this year. Okay, so till then, goodbye, take care, happy learning.